This is Frank Eslam, Chairman and CEO of FY Investment Group and your host of Washington Connect Review, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, our guest is Hung Nguyen. He's the president of Democratic Asian Americans of Virginians. Thank you very much for coming to the show.
Thank you very much for having us.
You're most welcome. Tell me a little bit about your organization. It's called DAAV. And please tell your background as well.
Okay. Well, DAAV is the Democratic Asian Americans of Virginia. We obviously are a group of Asian Americans who support democratic values. We were also part of the state Central Committee, the state party of Virginia, and we became a part of the state party about 3-4 years ago. Prior to that, many of us as Asian Americans, we were involved in local politics, state and federal. We also just thought that it was time for us to have a united front with the Democratic Party to know that not only are we Democrats doing things here and there, we're doing things together as a unit, as a group. Myself, I am, during the daytime when I'm not doing politics,
What do you do for daytime?
I'm a federal contractor, work in the defense industry, work for a small IT business based in Maryland. And so we have several different contracts, and I've been in that business for over 12 years or so.
So this is your passion?
It's more than a passion. It's we have to do something about it, right? Yeah. So we live here, and in this case,
so
we
live
in Virginia.
it's very important to be involved in politics. As you say, politics unifies the people, it creates a common cause.
Correct. It is. It's very important because I always tell people the basic level is we all live in neighborhoods.
Exactly.
We have a pothole. We can wait for somebody to fix it, or we can call up your local government office or call up an elected official and say, hey, we have potholes. Or there's a school and cars keep driving by very fast. We have to put up stop signs or something to protect the children. We can wait for somebody else to do it, hopefully, or we have to do it ourselves.
That's very well said. It's a good analogy and a good example to illustrate your point. Tell me about the mission of this and goals and your accomplishment of this organization that you're talking about.
DAAV, our goal is very simple, is to register voters and to get voters
to ignite,
to get them involved.
To get them engaged and be informed.
Because very simply, again, I've sat there at a table where parents have complained to me about the education system, and I asked them, well, if a school board member came, would you sit down and tell them what your issues are?
They need to participate.
They need to participate, but many of them say no. That's what I'm telling you. I said, no, don't tell me because I have my own issues. Yeah. So how about if you get involved? And so that's what we're trying to get folks involved, is to register them to be voters, to get them involved in the process, to let them know that you can talk to your elected officials and tell them, whether it's the governor, the congressman, or even your local city council members, say, hey, these are my issues. And then even more importantly, for them to go vote. A lot of folks are very dismayed with, elections at times. And I always tell them, doesn't matter if you don't like the candidate. How about if you just go vote for yourself or put it right in your dog's name or your goldfish name? Because what's happening is you're still counted as a voter. Yes. And so when the politicians and all the posters go and look at the demographics, they'll say that you voted.
So to make sure voices are heard.
Exactly.
If you vote.
If we vote.
That's a good way to do that.
Yeah, and so we have to constantly be voting.
So you're building a country that benefits to all individuals rather than selected few.
Correct. Because we're all Americans.
Absolutely right.
No matter where we come from, how old we are, we're all Americans.
And we have people every end of the earth in this country. Correct. From different background and belief, caste and creeds.
And that's where we need to let other people know who we are and what our values are. We are still Americans. We may have different celebrations, whether as an Asian American have Lunar New Year's, or as a South Indian you might have Diwali.
Well, they bring the traditions and their culture. And that is the best part of America's diversity and democracy. Mm-hmm. And openness and inclusiveness that we can all proudly and truly embrace about America. So thank you much for what you do for our nations. Tell me who founded this DAAV?
So a group of folks founded DAAV. Like I said, many Asian Americans individually were doing politics, and so some folks got together. Rose Chu, who has been a very a strong advocate, Prince Awala, Dewita Sarhorno, who's an Indonesian, Cora Yamamoto, who's a Japanese American, and myself. I've kind of been involved in behind the scenes.
So it involves the fabric of the whole society of Asian Americans.
It's all the above, and we all had common goal of, hey, let's do something for our community.
Good. And for our country.
And for our country.
And that's how you participate in a representative democracy in America, correct?
Correct.
My question to you is, how do you get the funding?
It's all everywhere. Everywhere. If you want to give a check, we'll take it.
Okay.
It's not tax deductible because it's a political organization.
It's a social organization.
But we'll take all checks, and we have a membership structure where we made it very simple. $50 for we have lifetime membership. I think it's like $120. So that way you don't have to be writing small checks every year. But we've also just recently had our first coming out party, so to speak. This past June at the state party, the Democratic Party of Virginia had their state convention at George Mason University. We were lucky enough to have a reception as one of the first receptions. We had over 300 people attend from folks around the Commonwealth.
And you charged them?
Nope.
Or free?
It was free. We actually solicited donations, so we had pass hors d'oeuvres. Of course, they paid for their own drinks.
Okay.
But we had Tim Kaine.
Yes.
Brian Moran, Jim Moran, Jerry Connolly, Bobby Scott, all the other state delegates, Mark Keem, they all came to show. And so we were very good. It was not just Asian Americans who attended the event, it was also a lot of non-Asians, which is actually our goal. Because our focus is to let other folks know, especially in the Democratic Party, that Asian Americans can be Democrats, Asian Americans can vote Democrat, but Asian Americans also have our specific issues unique to us that may not be the same as, let's say, an African American community.
Well, makes sense. You have some of the unique things that you want to discuss with them, and especially the immigration reforms and education and so on and so forth. Now, why should Asian Americans care about who wins the presidentials or the Virginia elections?
Well, we should care because, the reality is, I'm talking to you, and I know that a lot of South Indians overwhelmingly support Barack Obama. By about
South Asian Americans.
South Asians, I'm sorry, yes. Yeah. By 75%.
Yes.
To about 8% leaning for the other candidate.
Sure.
But even with that, the reason we should care is what are the issues that are important to us as a community, as business folks who are really going to do things that support small businesses. So in the Washington, D.C. area.
Entrepreneurship,
innovation. Who's actually going to support STEM instead of just talking about it?
And even talking about the education, STEM, science, technology, engineering, math.
Correct.
No question about that.
And so these are the things that we should support the folks that are going to actually do concrete things. So being a Democrat, obviously, I want to support Democrats, but at the same time, we want to actually have measurable results and metrics that we can hold people by versus somebody can say, we need to fix the education system. Well, how are you going to track that?
Right.
Versus we need to help small businesses get paid quicker.
Or also get the access to the loans from the community banks.
From the community banks. And so that's why, in this case, President Barack Obama has actually pushed through legislation to increase loans for about $250,000 to $350,000 threshold.
Sure.
It's $100,000 difference, but that's still a lot that small businesses can access. Reducing the time frame for which it takes for small loans, business loans, to go through, or even for getting bonds.
Sure.
Or even simply because in Washington, D.C. area, there's a lot of federal contractors.
Sure.
You know about
that.
Yes. And sometimes, the government is slow in paying those bills.
Yeah. And I know that now that you can get paid quickly.
As
a result of that, it's good for your cash flow and so on and so forth.
And so those are the concrete things that you want to support.
So those are the steps you can measure.
Correct.
So the measurable performance you're talking about. As a person in the DAAV, please share some of your efforts with regard to the voter registration.
So what we've been doing is we have voter registration drives at different community festivals, events. So a couple weeks ago, the Vietnamese American community had a Vit Fest at George Mason University. Some of us came, registered folks during the week, that day, let folks know what Democrats are all about. The other party was there. In a couple weeks, we'll also be at George Mason University again for the Asian Festival, which was originally started by the Thai tennis group, and they were originally up in Reston. We'll be there registering folks, but the nice thing about that day is we'll also be having a nonpartisan organization, APIA Vote, will be hosting a presidential town hall with a candidate from the other party and a representative, for President Barack Obama. So we'll be present there to let folks know who we are as a Democrats, to engage them, to talk to them. The other activities that we're doing, a lot of our folks are going door-to-door knocking on weekends to let folks know why President Barack Obama, Tim Kaine, who's running for Senate, Jerry Connolly, why these folks are good for the Asian American community.
Very well. Thank you for your leadership, what you're doing for this nation, and also for the state of Virginia, and also for Asian Americans. you're trying to advance your cause as well. My question to you, after the voter registration, you got to mobilize them as well to make sure they go vote.
Correct.
How do you go about doing that?
So what we're doing is we're doing follow-up. So what we've learned, the system is everybody does phone banking, so we're doing those activities for those who are able to go sit, do phone banking. But what we're also doing is going to ethnic centers. So, for example, Vietnamese community, we'll go to Eden Center in Falls Church. We'll go to the Korean American Shopping Center. We'll go to all these places where we're allowed to go to. We love to go to temples and churches if they allow us to go there, just to educate folks.
Or mosques.
Or mosque. And to go there to educate folks about who we are, and also engage in conversation, very honestly, because not everybody's going to vote your way. So you want to encourage them, and also, at the same time, we bring our elected officials wherever we can to some of these events, so that way folks can meet and feel that they can talk to folks directly. And so that follow-up, registering folks, doing phone banking, doing door-to-door knocking, and also going to the places where our people gather to talk to them. That's how we're moving the needle a little bit. But also at the same time, obviously we're a democratic organization. There are also other organizations that are being formed right now that are going to try to be nonpartisan to reach out to Asian Americans. So like in Loudoun County, it's heavily Republican, some say, and then there's other areas where people really are not quite sure how they vote. And so you have Andrew Ko, who's a Korean American, and Lovely Law. They're going to be working to try to spearhead this activity out there to find out how people vote and where they're voting, to kind of get them engaged.
Well, I was talking about the engaged and political involvement. What advice do you have for the young people, or for that matter for anybody? Why should we be politically engaged and involved?
I'll be very honest. If we're not going to be engaged and be part of the decision-making process, we're not even just going to be left out. They're just going to ignore us.
We have no voice.
We have no voice, because I'll tell you this. We tell all elected officials always, when they're there on TV talking to the public, they're always talking about the African Americans and Latino communities.
They never talk about Asian Americans.
They hardly ever talk about Asian Americans. So what I remind all our elected officials is, it doesn't cost you anything to say African American, Latinos, and Asian Americans.
Good.
All in the same sentence. So not only, because the reality is, if they don't talk about us, they forget about us until it comes time for elections and money. And so what we want to make sure is that we're always engaged, that we're always part of it. And so when they're making those decisions, whether it's who gets what sort of funding, what kind of nonprofit are getting funding, they need to be mindful that Asian Americans are part of the community.
Can the Asian American have an impact on the presidential elections as well as the elections in Virginia?
Yes.
If so, why?
Asian Americans are the swing voters, and that's why we're very important.
They're not quite independent. Are they aligned with
So if you look at most polls generically, a lot more Asian Americans, according to a recent poll by Celinda Lake, it says that Asian Americans tend to lean more Democratic. There's a few Republicans, and then there's still the independents.
There's still some independent voters.
And it's that independent vote.
So we need to sway those independent voters to the Democrats.
So in Nevada, Florida, Ohio, and Virginia, where we live, we're talking about
a swing state right now.
It's a swing state. We in 2008, we voted for Barack Obama. In 2010, a lot of Asian Americans voted for McDonald.
Obama McDonald, the governor of Virginia.
Who's the governor of Virginia. And now we're hoping that folks will vote for Obama again because it's that independent vote. It's the vote in between. So as Vietnamese Americans, South Indians, alone we can't, but as a group we can. So we're talking about a 47,000 vote margin.
47,000 margin. My question is, how do you appeal to those independent voters? What do you have to do to appeal them?
I really think
to attract them.
Very honestly, a lot of the rhetoric that goes from both ends, we need to stop that. Because we're going to turn away those folks when we go too far on either end. So we have to talk to them about the values that means something to them. So a lot of them are working class, middle class folks.
Good.
We got to talk about the education of taking down
loans.
And very concrete stuff, because their kids are going, a lot of folks are worried about how are they going to pay for their kids' college, or those who have college children right now, how are the loans going to be paid off? So those are concrete things.
So those are the things that they care about.
Those are the things.
Talk a little about election officer. How do you become an election officer?
So part of the thing about getting involved is also being an election officer, which means that you are at the polls helping folks. Because assuming everybody speaks English, which the reality is most folks, not everybody speaks English.
Especially the first generation immigrants.
First generation. And so what we have to be able to do is say, oh, you look like you're having problems right there. Filling out the ballot. Can I help you? Can I assist you?
Good.
So that's what an election officer does.
So the people who speak the similar language, the same language, they should be able to share with them
and we should be able to connect.
Very well
So
done.
and that's a very concrete thing. So you asked how young people get involved. That's what young people can do.
This will be the first step for them to get
Correct.
engaged and involved, and that's the way for them to also be connected with the community in general, with the Asian community, and also with the community at large.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for coming to the show.
you very much.
You have shed your light for a lot of things, and thank you for your leadership. Thank you for what you do for Virginia as well as for our nation. It's a very important. This election is very important. This election is not about the next election. It's about the next generation of America.
Correct.
It's
Very
about the
much so.
future of America, which is at stake. Thank
Yes.
you very much.
Thank you.
And that is our show. Thank you very much for watching. This is Frank Islam from FY Investment Group wishing you a great week.